In this video, we're working on the Chapter 3 exercises. This is the first batch of exercises, and we're starting with exercise number 4. Part 4A says, create an application named Numbers Demo, whose main method holds two integer variables, assign values to the variables, in turn pass each value to methods named display twice the number, display number plus 5, and number squared. Alright, so what we're going to do here, you guys know I'm a fan of this, is I'm going to see if I can copy my text here, except this poorly generated PDF is not letting me do that. Yeah, can't copy it. Darn it.
Can't you select the cursor at the top?
Yeah, typically, Jay, what happens is if you're in the hand mode and you click on the text,
yeah,
it's just not letting me do it, and that's by virtue of what the software that I'm using. The ebook allows me to print the PDF small chunks at a time, but it doesn't really convert it to a proper PDF. So one of these days somebody will go out and convert it so we have it as text. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a new application. I'm actually going to make a new project. Call it numbers. Actually, the good thing to do is maybe call it Chapter 3, Exercise 4. That's probably a good naming convention. We go ahead and click Finish. I'm going to expand that project. I'm going to right-click and add a new class file. And I'm going to call that Numbers Demo. Notice I'm leaving the package blank this time. Being preemptive, I'm just saying. We're going to create a main method. And let's click Finish. So we have something here to work with. The next step says this holds two integer variables, assign values to the variables. All right. Remember I showed you that shortcut technique where I did 3 doubles all in one fell swoop and they didn't have any values assigned to them? You can actually also do the same thing with variables and assign a value at the same time. Since we're going to be working with numbers, I'm just going to call it num1, and I'm going to give it a value of, I don't know, 4. And then I'm going to do num2, and actually I didn't mean a semicolon there, I meant a comma. I don't know, 32. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty flexible, and you're going to find syntax approaches that work for you. You don't, like I said, if you're not comfortable doing that, just go ahead and do this. Same difference. Okay. It is. I think it's more efficient, and you can get more stuff in less lines of code, which I'm kind of a fan of that. All right. It says, in turn, pass each value to the method's name, display twice the number, number plus 5, number squared. You guys are probably going to have to read that to me. So I'm going to be creating those methods. Display twice the number. And display number squared, except you got to spell correctly. Actually, you don't, but okay. Now it recognizes that we don't have any of these. I'm going to use the Eclipse shortcut here. You want me to type it out by hand? That's punishment. But if you're using Eclipse, you don't have to type it. All right. Let me just read this. Okay, create each method, or in turn pass each value to the method's name displayed number. Okay, so what they're asking us to do is we're going to pass num1 to each one of these. And then they want us to pass num2 to each one of these. So I'm just going to copy these statements here, paste them, and change each one of them to num2. Yeah, I suppose you could do them at the same time. But this is the way I'm choosing to do it. And one of the reasons I think one of the clues there is that what they're calling it, display number plus 5 as opposed to numbers plus 5. So now we are going to need to create all these methods. So I am going to do a little bit of borrowing here so I don't have to type all of it. And each one of these methods is going to be placed down here. So we do public, static, void, display twice the number. What are we passing into it? An integer. And what should we call it? How about num? And what's this going to do? Display twice the number? Okay. I'm going to show you a couple different techniques here. One is I'm going to create a variable. We'll call it total. And then in the next line, I'm going to say total equals num times 2, return total, right? And that will work just fine. Let me show you another way to do it. You guys are afraid of this, right? I could declare total and just do the math right away. Know what else I can do? I can just do that. Did you guys catch all those approaches? People who get really efficient with their coding will try to do it in as short a statement as possible. The rationale for it, we're writing simple programs, it's not a big deal. But what this would allow us to do is not to declare a variable. So we're not grabbing any memory space, even temporarily, to do the work. We're just doing the math and sending it back. But, wait a second. What's the name of this method? Oh, I'm not returning anything, right? So, read the instructions, darn it. Now, I think I'm going to opt to actually stick with this approach. But we're not returning anything at this point. One of the clues should be that void that's highlighted. Right. Because notice when I typed return, what it did? It highlights the void. It's like, wait a second. Yeah, change this. Now, we instead are going to do a system out print line. What are we going to system out? Well, if we're going to display the total, yeah. So what I'm going to choose to do is kind of give some verbose output. The number times 2 is, total. So that's what it's going to output. Okay, and I'm trying to show you guys all these different ways of doing it. The other thing I could do is I could just take this math here, that number times 2, and I could do that math right in position right there. Totally do that. It's okay. It would work. So what I'm trying to do here is show you the approaches. And if you are going to do math in place, it's really a good idea to do that. All right. So I think the most simplified and elegant code is this. But notice it doesn't like the fact that I use num1 there. It's got to be num. So the number comes in, and then I'm going to say that number times 2 is the result of the math. All right, let's build the other 2 and then we'll see how it runs. So since the other 2 are just going to kind of be extrapolations of this, I'm going to copy the one I just created and paste it. And then the next one is display number plus 5. Okay, it's recognizing it. And God, that's going to be really easy, isn't it? Okay, if you're having a hard time seeing, I'm actually going to flip the light switch. Better? You know, the other thing that we can do, if you guys are having a hard time seeing the screen, Jay is joining us on Hangouts right now. You guys could join the same Hangout and watch my screen on your screen if that's easier. Do that in the classroom very often. All right, and then we're going to once again do another copy and paste. And now we're going to call it number squared. And it recognizes it. And how do we square a number? Multiply it by itself. So that right there is the program in a nutshell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clear away some of these extraneous lines to kind of. Oh yeah, thank you. You're reminding me of the fact that I'm not being detail oriented. Somebody just commented here in the class that don't I have to change the output? Yeah, I guess I do. So, well, times 2 plus 5 and squared. It may be better than saying is. I could do equals. Is fine. Doesn't really matter. As long as it works. All right, so everybody's comfortable with that? Okay. So let's just conceptualize what's happening here. We're going to run the program. We have 2 values that are hard-coded. Each one of those values is going to be sent to each one of the 3 methods. So I'm just doing them separately. And what we really should do is we should predict some output so we know that it's working right. So I'm just going to say, well, what's 4 times 2? 8. 4 plus 5? 9. 4 squared? 16. You're thinking square root. Yeah, it's not a math class. You know what's interesting, though, is in some college and high school curriculum, Java can stand in for a math course, especially when you get to the higher level of Java because there's so much math involved.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. So for 32, it's going to be 64, right? Plus 5, 69. And then squared. That's where I need the calculator.
30, wouldn't it be 32 plus 5 is 37? $10.24. Does it sound like a familiar number, computer people?
Yeah, it's a power of 2 is really what it is. So. All right, so let's actually go ahead and run the program, and hopefully our predicted output will be correct. So 4 times 2 is 8, 4 plus 5 is 9, 4 squared is 16, 64, 32 plus 5 is 37. I said 69 before, didn't I?
Yeah, you compounded it with the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was summing my totals.
Yeah.
Or you could think of it as wishful thinking.
Your logic
10,
wasn't
24.
technically wrong, though, right?
All right. So everybody's worked okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jay, can you mute your mic?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is this the part you need to see, Marlene? Yeah. Okay. You good? Okay. Now the second part of this, let's move on to that. It says modify the numbers demo class to accept values of the 2 integers from the user at the keyboard. So that's a pretty common thing for us to do. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you my technique for doing this would be this. I would create the scanner, call it input, do a new scanner. It should be repetitive for you hopefully by now, or we're getting close to that point. Nope, we don't want all that, just in. Thank you. All right, then we're going to do a prompt. And I'm going to do system.out.print. And then watch what I'm going to do here. See, once again, I'm combining statements. I'm declaring the variable and populating it right away. That's fine. And then basically we're going to do the same thing again. So you guys want me to go faster, right? All right, so just to repeat what I just did, created a scanner, did 2 prompts, grabbed the values, placed them into the variables. I declared the declared the variables and grabbed the values simultaneously. Did you guys notice the scanner? Did I type that in? How did it get there? Yeah, I imported it. It kind of happened automatically. And that's what happens when you're working with the IDE, and that's kind of a nice thing. Because it really, in many cases, you'll utilize stuff you'll never remember what the calls are to do it. So this is one that you're going to use often now. All right, so if you guys are good with this, I'm going to go ahead and run it and see if it works. I'll come back to the code so you can do your homework for free. Let's try some different numbers. Make sure our math is right. Looks good. All right, I'm going to pause the video here, folks. All right, I did a little poll here in class, and we had assigned for this 4, 5, 6, and 7, and somebody requested that I do 6 instead of going to 5. And this exercise is new in the 8th edition of the book, so I'm going to do it. It's a good exercise. The other 2 I have recorded from a previous iteration of the course, so I'm going to release that video too, so that those of you that are working through this have some sort of a guide. But let's read it. It says, to encourage good grades, Hermosa High School has decided to award each student a bookstore credit that is 10 times the student's grade point average. In other words, a student with a 3.2 average receives a $32 credit. Create a class that prompts a student for a name and a grade point average, then passes the values to a method that displays a descriptive message. The message uses the student name, echoes the grade point average, and computes and displays the credit. Save the application as bookstorecredit.java. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because this is actually much simpler than it sounds. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to create a new Java project. We're going to call this Chapter 3, Exercise 6. We're going to create a new class file. And I'm going to call this, what is it called? Bookstore Credit. I think we're going to need a main method. One thing that I know right away we're going to need, they already asked us to prompt the user, right? So let's just make the scanner right off the bat. Oops. All right. And what are we supposed to prompt for? All right. Let's do that first. I'm going to declare a string. Actually, let's do the prompt first. System.out. Yeah, we're going to put the name in a string, absolutely. But I'm going to ask for it first. Enter your name. And since we were talking about Monty Python, I was thinking about the Holy Grail scene where they try to cross the bridge. Guys, what's your name? You guys know the scene I'm talking about?
The Knights of Me?
Yeah. Green, no blue. Ah! All right, so I'm going to declare a string. String. We're going to call it name. Seems pretty reasonable. And that's going to grab the input and do a next. There we go. Next line. And then we're going to do a system.out.print again. Enter your GPA. Now, I expect a whole lot more from you guys than the 3.2. And that's going to be what kind of number format?
Double.
Double. Why?
It's a floating point number.
There you go. Because it will have a decimal place in it, basically. And once again, not byte, double. I think that's all the inputs that we need. Create a class that prompts the student for name, grade, parameters, and passes the value to a method that displays a descriptive message. So what we're going to need to do here is figure out what that is. So what are we going to call it? Compute credit? I like to be more descriptive. Remember what I was saying in the lecture? All right. So we're gonna let's make the method first. So let's do a public static void. We're not going to return it. We're just going to display it right inside the method. Or, you know, let's do something different. No, never mind. Yeah, changing my mind on the fly here because I just realized why I don't want to pass it back. Compute credit. All right, what are we going to send into it? Well, we're sending a name, right? A string. Sure. I don't know what to call it. I can't use the same name, can I? Well, I could just do student name. Right? And then we're passing in a double, right, the GPA. How about I just name it with caps this time? Now I'm really getting creative. All right. So what is it asking us to do? It's asking us to, yeah. The message uses the student's name, echoes the grade point average, and computes and displays the credit. Can we do that all in one statement? Yeah, why not? All right, so let's get started. How about instead of starting with the quotes, we actually start with student name, oh, it does not like that. Can I do the math right here? So how am I going to do the math? So. No, because once we pass it in, yeah, okay, you're understanding it now. Once we pass it in, we're using this version of the name. Is this all it needs to do? Christian, I think you're lucky I didn't hear that. We are missing something, and I'm doing this intentionally. What are we missing to make this work?
Do we have to return something?
Well, we're not returning it because this is just.
Oh, we need a place to put it.
Nope.
No?
You're kind of on the right track. I need to call it. I'm not telling it to do anything. So.
I called it Monterey.
Actually, all we're going to pass in is name and what? GPA. Oh, I'm calling it compute discount. No wonder it's underlining. Compute credits. Anything else I need to do on this? Yeah. It almost seems too easy, doesn't it? It's all in how you read the problem, and you just be very systematic, very methodical. And that's really all it takes. So let's save it. Let's give it a run. Enter your name. Since we're on the Monty Python thing. Sir Robin. 2.1 is my GPA. I suppose we could probably put a dollar sign here if you want. That's up to you. If you can get it to do what I just did, you're good. Everybody's okay? All right, folks, I'm going to wrap the video here.